this party. You all ready?
Yeah.
All right, let's roll. Welcome to the smartest people in the room. We are so glad you are here with us, and just by showing up, you are already demonstrating your very own smarts. Today, we wrap our celebration of Women's History Month by featuring one of my dear friends and music tech heroes, Heather McBee, and one of the industry's best storytellers, Maurice Minor. Before we get started, let me take care of some business. First, to the audience, please feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat window. The reason we do these webinars is twofold. First, we want to showcase really smart people and the amazing work they do day to day in the industry. But the second reason is a bit more nuanced. Many of you know that I am a music industry headhunter. I place music executives in roles throughout the business. So by definition and function, I help people connect with companies. And in this series, my goal is to help you make more connections, and I invite you to take full advantage of that opportunity. Specifically, I invite you to engage with the speakers and the other attendees in the chat of the Zoom. Please introduce yourselves, share your LinkedIn profile, say hello to your friends, and make some new ones. And ask questions of our speakers. We will try to address as many of those as possible during the interview. And also, please make sure your chat is set to address speakers and attendees. I want to thank our program sponsors, for without their support, we could not keep this free. I want to thank First Horizon Bank, Bufkin Baker, Four Roses Bourbon, the Fairlane Hotel, the Tennessee Entertainment Commission, Lightning 100, Tennessee Brew Works, Moo TV, Jive Printing, Project Music, and Cushmaster's brand of CBD products. Now, let's get down to business. In today's host seat, we welcome music industry veteran Maurice Minor. Maurice's career is founded on a basic tenet: using communication to connect people by telling their stories and conveying their messaging. Artists, industry leaders, and radio professionals nationwide have come to know and respect Maurice for his innovation and skill in applying that principle in varied and evolving roles. Based in Nashville, Maurice launched the current phase of his career as a freelance media and marketing consultant and services provider over 7 years ago. Current clients include Garth Brooks and Trisha Yearwood, Pearl Records, Alan Jackson and Real World Tours, and Warner Music Nashville. In recent months, he's also provided services to Miranda Lambert and Outback Presents, among others. He began his career as a radio journalist and spent over a decade in syndicated radio at MJI Broadcasting, which was later Premiere. In 2005, he joined the RCA label group in what was then a first-of-its-kind major label position, where his experience contributed to the careers of Kenny Chesney, Carrie Underwood, Alan Jackson, Brooks and Dunn, Miranda Lambert, Brad Paisley, Martina McBride, Chris Young, and others. Yes, that's just about every A-lister in Nashville, so well done, Maurice. A stint in artist management followed, where he handled marketing and media needs for Alan Jackson. Maurice is a leadership music alum, class of 2016, and served as an adjunct instructor at Belmont University in Nashville. Welcome, Maurice. Glad you are with us.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be part of this. Thank you.
Awesome. And joining Maurice as today's featured guest is Heather McBee. Heather currently serves as VP of Operations at the Nashville Entrepreneur Center. She has over 25 years of experience in marketing, sales, and operations in the music, radio, and nonprofit sectors. Previous adventures include Sony Music Nashville, where she led the development and success of its digital music business, and Cumulus Media, launching the nationally syndicated America's Morning Show in 30-plus markets. She continues to drive innovation through her work supporting entrepreneurs and advising the NEC's project, the Nashville Entrepreneur Center's Project Music and Entertainment program. Heather serves on the boards of Leadership Music and Operations Sing. Please welcome these two amazing rock stars to the smartest people in the room. Take it away, Maurice.
Thank you, Tom. Thanks. And Heather, thank you for reaching out and asking me to help showcase you today. This is going to be a lot of fun, I think. I've interviewed lots of people over the years, as Tom kind of hinted at, but it is rare to get to sit down with someone that I know so well. So this is going to be a little different in that regard, because we've certainly had our share of adventures, both personal and professional. And this is just going to be another one.
Awesome.
My my first question, any good story starts at the beginning, and we're going to touch on a lot of what Tom just did in his introduction, but going back a little bit further, Heather, how did you get here? There is nothing automatic about a person from small town West Virginia making her way to the big city, any big city, let alone this one.
Not the truth. I will just warn everybody now, I'm doing this from my home and there are 4 animals and they all just woke up. So just a heads up, it's just a matter of time before there's a cattail in the screen. And Maurice, I appreciate your first question, but I first want to say I'm a little bit intimidated. When Maurice and I were planning, doing our prep for this, he reminded me that he has sat down with folks like Muhammad Ali and Tony Bennett and Gwyneth Paltrow. So this is really a privilege for me. We've had plenty of talks over drinks and meals over the years, but never have I been in his interview seat. So I don't know whether or not to be intimidated or scared or just feel really safe. So I'm going to go with the really safe and say glad to be here doing this with you. Of all the folks that I could be interviewed by for an hour, I'm glad it's you. So your first question, how did I get here? Well, just as you said, small town girl from West Virginia, a little town called Clarksburg. For the most part, that's where I grew up. And I was that obnoxious little kid that would call the radio station and bug the DJ all hours of the day and night. And I just fell in love with the concept of music and media and stars and what it meant and what music meant to people and what it was. And I wanted to somehow work with it. And to be honest, and I hope I don't blow anybody's expectations here, but I do not have a musical note in my body anywhere. I am a business and marketing person through and through. But I knew even at a young age that there was going to be some way for me to work with music. And I just followed that dream. When I was 14, I started working at the local country radio station, and it was a billboard reporting station. So we had folks in there buying drinks for the staff all the time. Not me, I was 14. So let me just to be clear here, I wasn't that bad yet. And I'm being bit by a cat. We knew that was going to happen. I warned you. So I just followed that dream. Anytime somebody would come to town from Nashville to try to get us to play their record, I would start asking them questions. How do I get there? What do I do? And they told me about Belmont University. So that's what I did. After going to a year or two of school in West Virginia, I realized I'm not going to get in the music industry if I stay up here and go to school. So I packed up my bags, came to Nashville, went to Belmont, and the rest is, there's more. I could go on for an hour just going through that story. So I won't do that to you, but I ended up interning for B&A Records, which was a brand new label here in the BMG family, was their first ever intern. It was a brainchild of Joe Galante to have this other imprint. And then from there, spent 25 years in that label family before leaving, going to Cumulus and now at the EC. You're muted, Maurice.
Sorry, it's just such an intimate conversation. I forgot I actually had to turn myself off. Let's talk a little bit about that career trajectory now that we've gotten you to Nashville. Entry level at a label.
Mm-hmm.
I got to meet you as you were really moving from middle management role at the label to into the executive level. That crowned out your time there. Got a transition period after that chapter ends. You joined the Entrepreneur Center here in Nashville. And what was a really exciting time for them and for you. And let's talk about the evolution of that role and how all of that has also led to expanded community involvement for you and an expanded community profile. There's been a trajectory.
I think it's gone more like this, but yes, there's been a trajectory of sorts. Yeah.
I'm going to argue. I'm going to say it was this, and then this.
Okay. We have different perspectives of my career trajectory, but we'll go there. So out of that, I think what I would love to highlight is those early days of digital music. I was reflecting back. It was 1996 when it might have been 95, but I was sitting at my desk at, what was it? It was RCA at the time. And we had these cubicles. I was sitting at this cubicle and the guy across from me was asking what the internet was and what HTML was. And so, of course, I'm this 20 something year old kid. I'm explaining, well, HTML, it's hypertext markup language. Don't you know? Don't you know? And I'm all excited about it and talking about the internet. Nobody knows what I'm talking about. And a gentleman by the name of Randy Goodman walks around the corner. He was one of my bosses at the time. And keep in mind, this was the 90s, so please don't judge Randy on this now. We've all learned new things since then, but he came around the corner and he's like, you guys cannot waste your time on this. This is a waste of time. Do your work. Don't worry about this internet thing. And I was really upset by that. So I did what any 20 something would do. I marched my ass down the hall to his office and said, I think you're wrong. I really think you're wrong. And he did what he did, which was promptly dismiss me from his office. And then a few minutes later, he came down and he handed me this memo. And it was a memo that from the head of, gosh, I forget who it was from, but it was from somebody at our New York office saying, we're going to start doing genre-based websites at the label level. And so from that point forward, that's when Digital and I in the music industry got to know each other really well, because when Randy handed me that piece of paper, it became my responsibility. And so from that point forward, I wore the hat of helping us understand what it meant to be in the technology space for music. So that was everything from just having a simple website, which was really unheard of at the time. We had country.com, which ultimately became cmt.com, but none of the labels, nobody was doing that yet. So we forged that ground, launched a website called Twang This. And it was a combination of the RCA label, B&A, and we worked with Arista on it. So it was the sister to BMG New York's Peeps Republic, which was for urban music. So a little history there.
And to add some perspective, that was, I'm going to call it an exciting time, but it was a fast moving. Well, it was a time that was about to get exponentially fast moving.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about websites, and I think, it's important to remind people, artists weren't necessarily designing their own websites. Management teams weren't handling that or having someone do it for their artists, because there hadn't been the need. It was a lot of people were just hadn't recognized the need for that yet. And all of a sudden, labels everywhere, that became part of their service providing. They provided various services already. That became another one. And along with that, it went well beyond websites. Social networking came along, and all of a sudden, again, managers and artists weren't equipped to do that. The label and you in your role had to provide that service.
Mm-hmm.
You had to create a staff to hire to handle that servicing.
Absolutely. It was such a weird time because, and it kind of all runs together, so bear with me, but it was a while before that area though started actually making money, because selling CDs on a website was not a sustainable way to make money. It just wasn't. That model didn't play out or didn't last very long. But it was when iTunes and the true digital music came along, that's when that area started making money, and there was even more attention on it. And that was when our parents in New York were challenging us, get those rights from the artist, go in, build your service department, do this, do that. But because the digital side was starting to make money, but the type of money we were making, we were pulling from traditional sales. So the revenue pie wasn't getting that much bigger, but we were making revenue in a different area of the business. So what happened was the digital area started pulling resources from other areas of the company, and the digital ballooned. We had a staff of 8 people in the digital department doing everything from mobile marketing to websites to downloads, you name it. And then the industry got smart over time and said, we don't need a digital department. We need specialists in each of our other areas. So marketing developed into having actual digital people, digitally proficient people in the marketing department. PR, same thing, digitally proficient people in the department, sales, et cetera. But yeah, it was a big shock to people to watch, having a, I reflect back on it, and there's a lot of friends were impacted over the years, but sitting in a room making the decision of, we're going to look over here at these two jobs in this area because this area doesn't generate any revenue right now, and we need the people over here. And sadly, the people in that other old area didn't have the skill set to translate to digital. So they would lose their jobs so that we could move into the future. And it sucks, but it was the reality of the situation and where the business was going at the time. But then there's exciting things like we got you, Maurice, and you weren't
I was
digital.
saying, one of
Maurice
the
wasn't
tertiary
digital
things.
at the label, but he talked about it. He invented his position and convinced Joe to come in and create this position and hiring him. And for whatever reason, Maurice and I got along, and we were the misfits, if you will. We didn't quite fit in any box in what we were doing, with him doing content, me doing digital. So we'd spend, I don't know, 6 out of every 7 days a week, we had time together. And what grew out of that was not just an amazing friendship, but we figured out, between the resources I had in digital and the outlets and the ways to make money, let's do that with the content Maurice is making. And nobody had ever heard of that in Nashville either. I'll let you talk about that one, Maurice.
Well, yeah, it was an unexpected, and I hope, people who are participating today have had these kind of experiences, these wonderful positive experiences of teamwork yielding unexpected results. As Heather, indicated, I had, and as Tom explained, my resume was a bunch of music journalism, basically in various forms, and that role at Sony was about creating audio content. That's all I went there to do, was to support a lot of what was needed for radio and other outlets from in-house, as I had done in syndicated radio. But all of a sudden, Heather's digital team is challenged with creating content. And it needs to be more than audio. It's got to be visual because it's on a screen. And there's the realization, well, I'm sitting down with these artists, put a camera over my shoulder. Where, there's little things. I mean, they seem little now. I call them little things, but the fact that out of that entire roster of artists that we were working with in that time frame, the very first artist we did that with was Alan Jackson.
Oh, wow.
Arguably, that he wasn't, Kenny Chesney, wasn't Brad Paisley, who was all cutting edge. He wasn't one of the new guys who's like, yes, and I want to get on Twitter too. I mean, this is Alan Jackson, who's like, that was our first visual content that we created to go with an album. And we got it to a point where for Kenny Chesney's Hemingway's Whiskey album, the deluxe version was the video content of me sitting down to do what would have been a normal routine cut by cut.
Yeah, I think that was probably my favorite part about the label days, and even today at the EC, is we get to do things that nobody has done before. I keep mentioning Joe. I'm talking about Joe Galante. He gave folks like Maurice and I this real opportunity to be very entrepreneurial in what could have been a very corporate environment. And to be honest, it did become a corporate environment after a while, at least from where I stood on the digital side, and with Sony taking over ownership of BMG and the rosters and all the content we were creating. Life changed a bit. There were more rules and regs around digital, and plus it started making money. And the first thing that happens when you start making money is somebody puts rules and regulations around it. Usually, sometimes because we do something that we shouldn't have done unknowingly, but it does happen. And that's where it stopped being quite as much fun, because there were more rules and regulations to follow. But that's when, eventually I was able to come over to the Entrepreneur Center, and it opened up those thoughts and doors again. And that was one of the beautiful part about being at the EC and launching Project Music, was I got to go back into places like Sony, sit across the table and listen to people say to me, oh, we can't do that. I was like, oh, yeah, you can. Go look in this folder on this drive and it's there. You can do it. You really can. The boilerplate's there, or all you have to do is talk to this person in your organization. So that was the beautiful thing about being able to help entrepreneurs that are trying to drive in that space, is to be able to sit there with them and have those conversations back with those large organizations. And it was the groundbreaking stuff like we were doing that opened those thoughts in the first place and really helped. I think, there's that word, what is it? Disruption, which is a scary word to the music industry. To say the word disruption, there's a few of us that can get away with it. I would not want to be an outsider that comes into the music industry and says, I'm going to disrupt your business. It is a good way to get kicked out of the room. Say that very gently.
Um, I want to move forward to your current role at the EC, but before we do, real quick, you're talking about some of those fun, disruptive, who'd have thought we could pull this off moments. Looking back at the Sony days, I mentioned, Alan being our first visual content, but I think people would be surprised by some of the fun stuff you pulled off. The little markers, like the first platinum ringtone out of the
Yeah, then
entire
wait, don't
catalog.
say who it is. Don't say who it is. Okay, if anybody can put in the chat who they think the first platinum ringtone in all music was. Anyone?
We'll let you
Come on.
think on that for a second. We can
Yeah,
let that
yeah, yeah. You guys think on that. We'll come back to it. First platinum ringtone. We'll do first platinum ringtone in country music, just to be on the safe side. And no, it is not Ring of Fire. Will you have another quick question in there, Maurice, while they're guessing? I'll keep an eye on it.
I will. You use the word disruption there, and along the way, I know that's one of your go-to words. You've got three basic tenets that you try to bring to everything you do. Added value, curiosity, disruption. How did these come to light to be your key words, the ones? And how have these served you so well? I think we've already touched on how they've served you well.
Yeah, I think the most important one in there to me is curiosity. I was an only child, and my parents both worked all the time, and they said, if you want to learn something, just go learn it. World is your oyster, for lack of a better cliche. Somebody just got it. You're really close, Steph. It is Waylon, but you still have to figure out what song it was that was the first platinum ringtone. Very close. But just wanting to know what's under the hood of everything. That was one of the things when I first started as an intern at the label. We didn't have an IT team. So when the server would go down and our network would go down, somebody had to go in the closet and flip the switch. And I wanted to know how it worked. So I was the one that would go in there and find the switch and flip the switch. It's like it was so amazing to know. You got it, Steph. Congratulations. If you're here in Nashville, send me your email in a private chat and I will hook you up with a cup of coffee. The answer to the ringtone question is Waylon Jennings, the Dukes of Hazzard theme, Good Old Boys, was the first platinum ringtone. Those were exciting days. I wish I had a plaque for that one. So back to curiosity. Jane Allen, our new CEO, not new, she's been there over a year now, but we've been on these music calls the past few days, and we were talking to Troy Tomlinson over at Universal Publishing, and he was talking about curiosity as well and how important it is and how that leads to innovation and just not being fearful about trying to understand how things work and why they work. And it just matters a lot to me. I look at that in everything. That's why I have so many animals running around my house. Is I'm curious, what's going to happen when we introduce this new animal? I'm going back to school right now. It's not because I have to go back to school. I'm almost 50. I don't have to go back to school. I've had a good career. I'm just curious. I want to know more. I want to know as much as I can and more all the time. So the curiosity one's a very important one for me. And then you mentioned added value. That was the number one thing that I learned when I was interning. When I was interning at BNA, there were 100 people on my heels going to Belmont that wanted that internship that I had. So even as an intern, I had to figure out what was going to make me different than all the others. And I learned that I came in to the organization to do a job, but if I wanted to set myself apart, what did I have? What value did I have to add to that job? How could I make myself more invaluable in that role? And so what that meant is, yes, I was an intern, but I was the intern that would cover the front desk when somebody had to step away. I was the intern that started inputting the research data from those little bounce back cards that we used to put in CDs. And then because I was in college at the time and I was curious and not afraid of technology, I figured out how to put those results into a graph and hand them to the CEO and say, check this out. If you look at the data this way, and all of that just came from that concept of added value and combining that with curiosity. And to be honest, that's a large part of what my whole career was built on. I don't know anything about digital, or I didn't know anything about digital at the time. We'd have Butch Waugh, who some of you may know, they'd be off at some conference like CRS, sitting listening to a panel, and they'd hear a word and they'd text me, hey, Heather, what does this mean? I didn't know. I built a career on using Google searches. I would search Google, find the short answer, text him the short answer, and then 2 hours later, I'd know everything about the topic because I couldn't let up on it. And curiosity would take over, and I'd spend a lot of time. But that's where it all came from. That's what, like I said, I built a career on Google searches and curiosity.
And you know what you said about added value, Heather. I want to say I think that is one of the most valuable things anyone can have. As you said, how that had served you well. I found myself thinking about for myself, I've had the good fortune in many scenarios to be able to say, and you won't find anyone who can do it better. And to feel confident in saying that, even if I didn't necessarily know that was the case, but to go, I'm going to make sure you don't. I mean,
Yeah.
how many hours, however many hours I have to put in or whatever. The Entrepreneur Center, the National Entrepreneur Center, and your role there. What makes it fun or a worthy challenge, or maybe what inspires you about what the EC is doing and providing and aspiring to and accomplishing?
Yeah, well, above and beyond music, and entertainment, we'll come back to that part in a second. What's exciting is all the work we're doing to connect entrepreneurs and the business community. So obviously our objective is making Nashville the best place in America to start a business, right? And to do that, we're connecting the entrepreneurs to the resources they need to be successful. But that's not all that we're doing. We've been around for 10 years now. DNA, entrepreneurship is in the DNA of this city. I mean, you look, it's in the DNA of the music industry. You look back at the Fisk Jubilee Center singers being the first touring act. You know, the tour bus came out of this city. The CMA being the first trade organization for music. There's so many firsts and entrepreneurial endeavors on the music side and then out of the city as well. And then we have this organization, the Entrepreneur Center, which is literally the front door. You come to us to get to the resources you need. If we don't have them, we're going to connect you. But the big part is understanding what the business community needs. So, and then connecting the entrepreneurs and that business community so we can make this the best place to start a business. That's a big part of it. And just that connection, you think about it. If I'm going to use Randy Goodman again. He's sitting at Sony. He's got corporate out of New York. He's got folks out of Tokyo, people having him focus on the bottom line. And at the same time, he's worried about breaking artists and the next big hit. Randy doesn't have time necessarily to deal with what's this piece of technology sitting over here that can help me. No, and his staff resources, they're dedicated to the bottom line and breaking artists, not necessarily digging into the technology and finding out what works and what doesn't work. They need things that are proven to work. And so it's our job to understand the needs of somebody like Randy and help connect them and the entrepreneurs so they can solve those problems together.
Got it.
I stumped you with that one, didn't I, Maurice? You got that interview stumped look on your face.
You were making me listen. I didn't already know this part.
Let's
I,
talk music and entertainment now.
yeah, well, I was gonna say, I want to make sure to touch on that. And because I know we're already almost halfway through our time here, believe it or not. Eh, You know, an early highlight of your time at the Entrepreneur Center was Project Music, which is now Project Music and Entertainment. How proud are you of that start? And let's talk about the program's evolution, because it's got some legs on it now too.
Yeah. Um, you told me you were going to ask that question, and that was the one I struggled with the most because the word proud threw me off a little bit because I
Oh,
forget that I forget sometimes that I'm allowed to be proud. Damn it, that's the most vulnerable way I can say it. So I did some soul searching, and you know what? I'm really proud of that program. I was looking back this morning, and that Project Music, that very first year when we didn't even know if it was going to work, didn't know if it was going to have a year two, it was covered by Forbes and Billboard and Entrepreneur Magazine and Inc. and USA Today. It was like, we did something pretty damn cool when we launched this, right? So yeah, I'm very proud of it. And to know that that program is just now entering its 7 years. And yes, it is, it's had some different iterations along the way, but at its core, it's still about supporting music-minded entrepreneurs. The biggest change right now really isn't a huge change. All we did this year was expand it to include entertainment companies. So when you think about it, if somebody's got a device that's going to help with security at a live event, at a concert, guess what? That's probably going to work at a football game too. And what we found over the years, there's so many companies coming through the program. iBuy was an example of one that came through in year 3. They were working in the music space because it was an easy, they thought it was easy. We had to teach them. But they started in the music space and then quickly they were working in the sports arena. So we see a lot of that. We've seen a lot of that over the years. And then even the way the city has grown, where sports is now more prevalent, have more connections to sports. We have e-gaming, we have film, we have all these other sectors of entertainment coming through the city. We saw the opportunity to expand it. So we are welcoming 14 new teams into the 7th cohort of the program. That announcement will be coming out soon. The cool thing is with those 14 teams, we're impacting 10 different sectors of the entertainment industry. So music, yes, but also e-gaming, sports booking is in there. We've got a little bit of film. We've got a lot of influencer stuff. So very, very exciting. And everybody that's on this call, if you want to see them for yourself, we're going to bring them on here on May 7th, I believe it is, 1 p.m. Central. So watch your inbox from Tom because he'll have a link for you for that one. So,
That's exciting.
so yes, Morris, I'm proud to answer your question. And that's what I'm proud of. And the other thing I'm going to throw in there that we're really proud about, because it's, to be clear, it's not just me for Project Music. It's hundreds of people in the music industry that have stood up and supported this program, either financially or through their time as advisors. I know I saw Beth Hall, she's on here. Thank you, Beth. I'm sure there's other Project Music advisors and mentors on this call, but there's a full team of people at the EC that are running this program. I'm lucky. I just to get to say, hey, let's meet this person. Let's meet that person. Did you think about this? They're doing the hard work of actually putting the program together day in and day out. So it takes a village to do this one.
I
But no, hold on, I'm not done, Morris.
Go
I'm
ahead.
trying to get to one really
Oh,
important figure. So 7 years, right? So 6 years so far. Up to this point, over 55 companies have come through this program and they have an 80% survival rate. So when you look back at that first year of Project Music, over half, what is it? It's half of those teams. There were 8 that first year. Half of those teams are still in business and building jobs for this community. And all in 80% survival rate for the first 6 years of the program. So those are some damn good numbers that a lot of people can be proud of.
yeah, yeah. And in any business setting, those
Yeah.
are, the odds are not stacked for that kind of an outcome. I think back on that first year, and Heather was kind enough to invite me to play a small role with that initial cohort at the very beginning, as they were presenting and what their premise was and who they were and what they were about. About midway through, which was fascinating because some of them had totally had to pivot by then, and to witness that, and then at the very end to see hear their elevator pitches, to help prepare some of them to actually do interviews and go out in public, and it was for anybody who has not followed Project Music and is on here, and now Project Music and Entertainment, that alone invested me in following and believing in what they do, and continuing to follow those people, as, over the course of these last several years has been really nice. It's been really cool to see how it has all panned out for them.
Yeah, just warn you, if you become my friend, you will do volunteer work for whatever I'm involved in. So just so you know.
It's very true.
That's good too.
Very true. I can vouch for that. I want to talk about, so people get to know you a little bit better. Not that they aren't in the context of this conversation, but I want to talk about fulfillment that goes beyond your day job. And in part because I think it's important for this conversation, in part because I think these last 12, 13 months have made many of us realize how much we need that in our lives if it didn't exist before, or how grateful we are for it. And you have that, whether it's, you do, it may seem like it is industry related, but you went through the Leadership Music Program and are still part of it on the board. Your work with Operation Song, and I don't know who, how familiar people may be with what Operation Song is and what they do. You're a member of your recovery community. What do you enjoy and get from your participation in this aspect of your life? Is it a joy of giving back in some way?
Very much so, a joy of giving back. I have, worked in the corporate music industry for more than 25 years, I think somewhere around there. Like I said, it all runs together, but that's a long time doing corporate and also in a role in an industry that is 24/7, a 24/7 lifestyle. I got a little tired. And I made a conscious decision to move into the nonprofit space, even with work. And I'm at a place in my life where I needed to have some kind of fulfillment through a give back. I had never invested that time before because I was always working on the road, going to a show, sitting at the office at 2 a.m., whatever it was. There was never really time to give back. So I dedicated my career to getting back into the nonprofit space, or being in the nonprofit space. And then just because the nature of what I'm doing, I've had more opportunity to give back through like Operation Song and Leadership Music, which has been really exciting. But it truly is, it's just about being able to give back at this point.
Sorry, had to unmute myself.
Okay.
Operation Song, again, that's something that I think maybe in a nutshell, a couple lines about who they are, what they do, and I'm guessing they probably have a website that you could direct people to.
Operationsong.org. Sorry, I was being bad. I was reading the chat.
That's okay. That's okay.
I'll
No, I was
stop.
just asking you to share a little bit about them and what they do, because
Yeah.
they may not have the profile that Leadership Music does.
Yeah, Operation Song is a much smaller organization, and what they do is they use the therapeutic value of songwriting to help veterans and families of veterans, because for example, there are 1.7 million Gold Star families in the United States, and Gold Star families are families that have lost a loved one through death in service. And it's a proven fact that that triggers, that loss is a traumatic loss that can trigger mental issues like PTSD, depression, and anxiety. And then you look at music, it's proven that music can help somebody process those memories and address them. And then when you add the element of songwriting to it, it's the engaging process, the active listening that people get out of it. So what Operation Song does is we pair songwriters with a family or with a veteran, and they write a song about their experience, and then they get a recording of that song. So it's a really simple way to help people deal with their issues and their grief and their loss. So it's a nice, I'm glad I'm part of it. I haven't been with them that long, but they are little, but they are getting loud. So I think Tom put the link in there. Thank you, Tom.
They're, and interestingly, I became aware of them via Leadership Music when they had an opportunity to make a presentation. And I was like, how cool is this? This is awesome.
Right.
Yeah. On the topic of giving back and the importance of that, I want to talk about mentoring. Put that word out there. Is that something you do? Is it important for you to do? And how have mentors played a role in so much of what we've already talked about this afternoon?
Wow, that's a big question. That one ranks right up there with that whole added value and curiosity thing. Absolutely. Mentorship is, if you don't get anything out of this conversation, um, get the message that you need to have a mentor. Everybody needs at least one mentor. I actually feel like I have a little board of directors. And so, I've got my professional coach, I've got this person, I've got that person. So when I have an issue, I consult my advisory board and make sure I've got all the different perspectives if I feel I need it. But yeah, so first of all, yes, I mentor. It was ingrained in me to believe in the concept of who's going to fill their shoes, obviously. So thank you, George Jones, for that, because I love saying that phrase and reusing it all the time, because I truly believe in that. It is our responsibility to help the next generation, be that in business, be that in artistry, be that in an entrepreneur environment, a business environment, whatever it is. And the way to do that and support the next generation is through mentoring. I have my own mentors, yes. Let's see, if somebody's keeping up, there was an old game. How many times was Joe's name said on the CMAs? That applies here too. You know, Joe Galante was a big mentor of mine. He's actually the one that taught me that concept and ingrained it in my head. And I still have mentors today. I still participate in mentoring. I spoke to a young lady yesterday. I'm very open. If somebody reaches out to me, if I can make it work and find the time to get you on the calendar, I will have a conversation with you, even if it's just to find out if you're trying to find out if you want to be in this business or not. So, and then the other side of that, a lot of people don't know, I'm in recovery. And similar to a mentor, in recovery, you have a sponsor. And it's the same thing. It's that person that's going to guide you through a process. And so, it was really natural for me when I got in the recovery space. They said, get a sponsor. I was like, oh, what's that? Somebody said, it's like a mentor. It's like, I know what that is. I know what it is and I know how to do it. Just point me in the right direction. So, and it is all of those relationships are beautiful things. And if you are out there and you're looking for a mentor, maybe you do or don't have one and you're looking for one, just know it's a two-way street. Like for me, I get as much out of mentoring somebody as I do out of as I do out of being mentored. I learned from you too.
I'd like to hope and think that I'm your media PR advisory board member.
Yes, you and Beth Hall, both. Yeah. Gotta give Beth credit here.
and I agree. I think there's something kind of cool about, and I don't recall when that moment happened for me. I can remember the first time someone told me that they saw me as a mentor, and it was a little overwhelming. I didn't feel worthy, but there's something really rewarding now about being at a point in life where you do, you do think you've experienced enough, seen enough to at least have some knowledge to share and go, yeah, all right, I can be a mentor. I can do this. I do have something to give back
Yeah.
now. A lot of this conversation has been about me using the word, how did you, how about those around you? You certainly have pointed out that like when it comes to project music and entertainment, it takes a village. This is not a Heather McBee production. And that even in the digital space and time frame you were working at Sony, that while you may have been the initial chink in the armor going, no, we need to pay attention to the internet. All of a sudden there's a team of 7 or 8 people, surrounding you. Because there was a genuine need. I want to get your take on the importance of teamwork and examples of how, without teamwork, you just don't achieve the results that you can do as an individual.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah. Teamwork, definitely important. You just stated a bunch of examples, and we talked about some of the mischief we would get into, and it was certainly no one person doing any of that. Sorry, hold on one second. I'll be right back. Let me breathe for 1 second.
It's allergy season. We're all having those moments.
Yeah, it is. It's like I'm getting foggy. I've got a cat biting my foot, and the chat, I still didn't close it like I promised that I would. So I got distracted. So yes, teamwork. Back to teamwork. I think all of those years, I say teamwork is valuable. I know it's valuable. For those out there that have worked with me a lot, I do forget that at times because I get a little headstrong. I think both Tom's even experienced it, and we don't work together directly. No, just the look on his face. But I know in my heart, and I know in principle, it does take a team to do everything. But when we say team, let's talk for a moment about the diversity of that team, right? You don't want 10 people that say yes all the time. The value is in having a diverse team, diverse perspective, diverse backgrounds. That everything that goes into that word diversity is what's important there. That's how we get things done as a team, is by honoring each other's different perspectives, good, bad, or ugly, and then working together to accomplish a common goal.
Where did 20-year-old Heather picture that 2021 Heather would be?
20-year-old Heather was a little naive. She came from a generation, or she was brought up by parents of a generation that had jobs until they retired from graduating all the way until they retired. And Heather believed that she really was crazy. She believed she would be in that seat. I thought I'd still be overworking at RCA Records, slinging some Waylon Jennings albums, having a good old time. But that wasn't true. The world definitely changed. And I'm actually grateful that I'm not still there after, well, we'll just say a lot of years. I already said how old I was. So we won't talk about how long I would still, I'm doing the math now, 30 some years, I would have worked at the same place if I were still there. But yeah, that's where I thought I would be originally when I set off to have that career in the music industry. I was going to be working at Waylon Jennings record label, RCA. That's where I wanted to be my entire life. And I didn't know anything about digital, so I certainly didn't see that coming either.
Where does 2021 Heather see herself in 20 years? Or 5 or 10? You can choose your increment.
Well, I plan to still be alive in 20 years because I'd be like 70. So that's a good one. I will be around. That's where I see myself. Definitely see myself having retired by that point. And I envision having a little piece of land that I'm out on where there are lots of animals. And my boyfriend is on this call, so I will state it publicly to everyone. There will be a baby goat in the future. We are going to have baby goats on this piece of land.
You will have to move before then.
Yes, but there will be a baby goat. It's a, sorry, it's a running inside joke where I really want a goat.
What's a fun fact about you that's not exactly part of your resume?
All right, you're getting in questions you didn't prepare me for, Morris. Fun fact that's not on my resume. Well, it doesn't say on my resume that I have tattoos.
Okay.
That's for sure. It definitely does not say that. I have multiple tattoos, more than are actually visible. So that's a good fun fact. I do like different hair colors, even though I've tamed it down lately. I think we might go back to something soon, though.
Okay.
I know Tom's fond of the pink hair. I don't know if you had a favorite or not, Morris. And I'm open to ideas for anyone in the chat. I'm open to hair color ideas.
The pink or the purple? I've liked them both. Yeah.
Okay, I like it. Peach. Mm,
Oh, we'll see. There we
cool.
go.
Blue. Yeah.
I see
Okay.
you do a little bit of blue. Yeah.
Yeah, I've done some blue. I've done some red. I know that was one of your questions.
It
Copper.
was. I was gonna ask you what's your favorite hair color over the years out of all of them, but yeah.
Yeah.
What
And
what
Michelle, I've tried copper before. It didn't go well. I'm too pale for copper hair, it turns out.
peach might be okay. You might be able
Yeah.
to go. Um,
Okay, you're off topic now. Keep going.
what what inspires you?
Oh, what inspires me? I love seeing people's dreams come true. Like, I just absolutely love that. That's one of the reasons I wanted to work in the music industry was just I remember the first small show I went to for Kenny Chesney. It was just a small show. The in-store had like 50 people. It was, and then I remember walking out on that stage when he was playing to a stadium with 60,000 people and thinking, damn, we did this with him. We built something and we helped him see his dream come true. It was like the time we went and saw Brad Paisley play his first stadium show at Gillette. Like you watch him grow up and you see that like that when an artist first comes through the door, they have that sparkle in their eye and all their hopes and dreams. And you get to help make that happen for them. And that was even in the first years of Project Music, I felt the same way. It's like here's these entrepreneurs and they've got so much hope and these big dreams and they want to do something that makes a difference and change the world in their own right. And just watching them and being able to be part of the fulfillment of their dream, that's what excites me. That's what I get off on.
What's a favorite book that you reread, you recommend to people?
Uh, let's see, Adam Grant Originals. I love that book. I've read it a couple of times now. It's just very inspiring. It's about being unique more than anything else. And he's actually got a new one out that I think I'm on page 3 because I read in my spare time. What is it? Think Again. I just started that one. I love.
What's a movie or TV show that you can watch again and again and again?
I feel like I'm getting your artist prep questions right now, Morris.
Yeah.
Let's see. Movie would be Life is Beautiful.
Oh yeah.
Love that. Very sweet movie. And then TV would be Sopranos. I have a I have them all on DVD, the entire library. I bought them each time they came out, and I still watch them.
I'm
Not
gonna
the
be
DVDs. I don't watch the DVDs anymore. I watch them digitally.
I'm gonna be really unfair to you now.
Uh,
Song or album?
so album, song, anything by John Prine, obviously. That's a given. But I cheated. I thought about that one because I kind of saw that one coming from you. Brad Paisley, American Saturday Night. I was thinking about what is my favorite thing I ever worked from an album standpoint. And that is the one album that elicits a lot of emotion for me. First of all, when I worked the album, so I was selling it and we sold it is into iTunes. And we had one of the first takeovers of the iTunes store where it was totally branded with that album and that album cover. So that was pretty cool. But we were at NARM that year, the old former music biz name, NARM. And you go in the hotel room, you bring all the accounts into the hotel room. And so they had me talk about this Brad album every time because I get really emotional about it because the song Welcome to the Future just addressed so much of what was going on in our world at the time, having a black president and just everything that song addressed. And it sounded like a Coldplay song. I loved the whole thing. What I didn't know is I also had mono at the time. So that's why I kept crying every time I would talk about it. But it was just a beautiful experience. And then Brad got to play that song at the White House for Obama, and just some beautiful things around that album that I will always cherish, the fact that I got to work it.
If there's something that you want people who have been participating with us today to take away from this conversation, that you want to just go ahead and say, if you remember nothing else, or if I share nothing else, what is that?
Yeah, I said it earlier and I'll stick to what I said. Get a mentor, be a mentor and get a mentor. If you don't walk away with anything else, please walk away with that. That connection is invaluable.
Excellent. I couldn't agree with you more.
Oh, thank you, Maurice.
Tom, I mean, I can go back into a few other things, but I mean, I hope I've
Looking at us.
My friend Heather McBee. I've learned a couple things today. I didn't know Life is Beautiful was her favorite movie. I didn't know.
Well, this has been great. And Maurice, you did exactly what I hoped you would do, and that was you would draw out some really cool things about Heather that maybe we didn't know, i.e. multiple tattoos. I knew that, but most of the audience may not have. But nonetheless, she is a remarkable role model to so many people here in the music community locally and with Project Music now internationally. She's just awesome. And I call her Queen Bee. That's one term that hasn't come up today, but Queen Bee is how I know and love her.
And this is Sonny. He's who was biting me while we were trying to talk. So he had his moment in the sun.
I appreciate both of you and you being guests on this platform. And I appreciate the audience for continuing to support us. We'll be right back here on next Tuesday featuring a couple of really, really interesting smart people. Ken Umezaki and Dave Wish are our guests on Tuesday. And you're getting ready to get an announcement in the mail about a giant one next Thursday. And your homework between now and then is watch the recent Bee Gees documentary. Trust me on this one, folks. But with that said, I'm going to wrap it up and just simply say to everybody, be nice to each other, get a shot, and I hope to see you out and about soon enough. Happy April Fool's Day, guys.